Okay, welcome back. We are up to Nun Vav Amud Beis. Here we are, Tana Rabbanan. Okay, so now we're going to talk about squaring a city. This is going to get a little complicated in the math, but we're going to be great. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Okay, I spent a lot of time on this today because I'm not so great at math, but we'll figure this out together. Tana Rabbanan. It's Tana Rabbanan. Hamar Beya Esair, a person who squares a circular city, right? So we said that if your city is a circle, so Chazal, they wanted to make, so you have 2,000 amos, but if you were to start measuring out from the circle, that's going to give you one measurement, but if you square the circle, you put a square around it, then you start measuring and have more space, right? Chazal are going to be lenient about how much space you have for your 2,000 amos. So, Tana Rabbanan is taught, Hamar Beya, if a person goes ahead and squares the city. This is what you do. Also, tavla murbas. First, you make a square around it. And then you square the tchum areas of the city. Also, tavla murbas. You make them like a square tablet. Okay. It's really helpful to see the pictures. Okay, so basically what you do is you have your circle, okay? I'm just going to use this, okay, so in case you don't have the pictures in front of you. You have your circle, okay, so you made a square around it, and then you put squares around it, 2,000 amos, all the way around each of the sides, each of the four sides. You made a square. Okay. Now don't go and measure from the corner. Okay, diagonal from the corner of the city, because you miss out on the corners. So maybe what you then do is then you put 2,000 amos in each of the squares. Okay, so in addition to the squares of 2,000 amos, which are over here, you then go ahead and see these empty squares. You go ahead and you fill them up with another 2,000 amos, 2,000 amos, 2,000 amos. So you actually gain a whole lot of space, right? Because really, if you were measuring 2,000 amos from this corner, it would stop over here, and then you would have, because you're putting on an angle, it's going to be much less. But instead, you put a whole square of 2,000 amos over here, and you gain a lot more space. So it comes out that the city, by having these squared, is going to be gaining how much? 400 amos here and 400 amos in each corner. Okay, so in other words, an initial square adds 400 amos do the space between the circle and the square around it. Nimtu tchum mistakrin. Sorry, and the tchum itself, the 2,000 amos, is going to gain. Why? Shmona meas ama lechan, u'shmona meas lechan. It's going to gain an extra 800 amos. Nimtu ir tchum mistakrin. The city and the tchum gain in total 1,000 masayim lechan, 1,000 masayim lechan, 1,200 amos and 1,200 amos along the diagonals. In other words, by doing it this way, you gain so much more space. Okay, I hope you followed that, right? In other words, again, you start with the circle. If you just put 2,000 amos around the circle, it's not going to be so big. So first you square it. You gain 800 amos there, and then you put 2,000 amos box around, 2,000 amos box around, 2,000 amos over here, and then you add 2,000 amos in the corners, and so you end up gaining a whole lot. Amar Baye, this measurement, all those numbers that we just said, specifically in a circular city, which the city itself has a diameter of 2,000 amos. Then all that math makes sense. Now we go on to discuss on a tangent, but based on a similar type of math, and that is that there is a halacha that we give certain cities. There are 48 cities that were given to the Levium, and in addition to those cities, the cities were given to the Levium to live, because the Levium were not really given the regular apportioned, the land of Israel was not divided and given to the Levium. The Levium were scattered throughout the land, but each tribe had to give certain lands to the Levium. In addition, they had 1,000 amos around each city, which was meant to be kept empty, and then another 1,000 amos, which they were able to put their vineyards, etc., etc. So Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, and the Gemara is going to use a similar formula to help us understand something. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, Tchum Ari Levium Alpayim Amma. The boundary of the area added to the cities of Levium was 2,000 amos in every direction. Semehen Elef Amma Migrash. Okay, so take away 1,000 amos, which was the open area. Okay, they all had 2,000 amos, take away 1,000 amos. Nimsa Migrash Ravia. What comes out is that the open area is 1/4, and the remainder is going to be fields and vineyards. Now, obviously, this math is not very good, because you have 2,000 amos, and you take 1,000 amos to be empty. That is not a quarter, that is a half, and that's what the Gemara asks. First, the Gemara says, "Menani mili." The Gemara says, "Where does this whole idea of this measurement come from?" Amarava Damar Kol Pasuk says, "Mikira ir v'chutza elef amos taviv." The open area is the city. From around the cities of Levim have to be outward 1,000 amos. Amar Torah taviv ir be'elef. Surround the city with a strip which is 1,000 amos wide. Says the Gemara, "Nimsa migrash ravia." The Brisa says that it comes out that the open area is 1/4. Ask Gemara, ravia palgahavi. It's half, right? It should be half, not a quarter. So Gemara says, Amarava. This is how you do it. Bar Ada mishocha asprali. Bar Ada, who is the surveyor, explained it to me. So again, beautiful over here. Rava is a Torah scholar. He doesn't know measurements necessarily so well, so he goes to a surveyor who explains it to him. So he does his research, and this is what the surveyor told him. We're talking about a city which is 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos, okay? So, Tchum Kamahave Shitzar. So how large are the 4 Tchum areas? areas, 16 million square amos. Okay, so bear with me, but basically what happens is that, again, you have these 2,000 boxes on each side, and each of those boxes can be 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos, because if the city is a square of 2,000 amos, then that means it's 2,000 amos along the wall. Okay, 2,000 amos going this way, and then 2,000 amos going that way, which is the tchum. Okay, 2,000 by 2,000 is 4,000, and so you have a total of million amos, and so what ends up happening, 4 million square amos. But if you have 4, then you have 16 million square amos. Kronos coming have in Shitzar. How large are the four corners of those areas? Another 16 million amos. Okay, take out the 8 million, which is the open area. Okay, because you have 8 million. Why? Because you have around each side you have 1,000 amos by 2,000 amos around each side, because there's 2,000 on each wall plus 1,000 out. Okay, so that's going to be 8 million square amos for Arba de Kronos, and the 4 million, and basically taking the corners as well, because you're taking a little bit around the whole box. You're taking that off as well, so that's going to be another 4 million, because 1 million for each corner. What's left? Kamahave tracer. The total size left open is 12 million square amos. Okay, so 12 million square amos for the open space. Gemara says Nimtza Migrash Revia. Still, the Bryce said a quarter. It's Tfei Mitilsaninu. 12 million open is more than a third of the 32 million square amos, which is the total. So our math is still off. So Gemara says, okay, IT Arba Damashe Alayhu, take the 4 million of the city and add it. When you said it was a quarter, it didn't mean a quarter of the whole thing, a quarter as in reflection to the 1,000 amos beyond the basic 1,000 amos. Again, there's 1,000 amos for empty, and then there's 1,000 amos beyond that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the city as well. Okay, but how big is the city? 4 million, excuse me. So 4 million square amos. So kanti tilsahavi. So let's do the math. So if you add the city, which is 4 million square amos, add to the 32 million total of this whole space, now we're up to 36 million, and 12 million, which is the open area. So now you're still up to a third. So mi starts with Bibu Kamar. The Gemara says now this is the connection. Who says they were talking about a square city? Bigule Kamar. We're talking about a circular city. Okay, and therefore Kama Maruba Yasser the eagle. How much larger is the area of a square than the circle? Ravia, 1/4. Dal Ravia Minayu. So therefore subtract 1/4 from the 12 million square amos. Initially we gave 12 million for the open space, but now take 1/4 from that. Okay, so how much is left? Pashlu Tisha, 9 million is left. Tisha mitlas and mishita riva have, and 9 is 1/4 of 36. Okay, if you look at the picture, it's actually very helpful. This picture over here shows you that the open space, your city is the middle circle, the open space is circular. There we don't give the person, because the people of the city want to help the Levium gain. So we don't square it over here, but rather this stays circular, this 1,000 empty amos. And then after that, this whole area after that is going to be the space which is left over, and that is actually 1/4 if you include the city as well. Abai wants to give another answer to this question. This Bryce is also going to make sense if you're talking about a city which is 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos. Tchumen kama havitamanya. So how large are the 4 tchumen areas around a city which is 1,000 by 1,000? It's going to be half now, right? Because again, each wall, it's 1,000 amos now. So 1,000 amos, 1,000 amos, 1,000 amos, 1,000 amos, 1,000 amos, and then you're gonna have 2,000 going outwards. Okay, which is before it was 2,000. Now it's 1,000, right? So it's half. So we're up to 8 million. Kama have a shitzar. Kronos kama have a shitzar. The corners. Now you're gonna add to the corners. Now over here, these corners have to be filled, right? Because that's what we keep on doing. We keep on filling the corners. And so over here, you see, we're gonna still put a bigger box in each corner, and that's going to be the same. That's going to be a 16 million square amos to fill the corners, because it's going to be 2,000 by 2,000 amos, and that's 16 million squared amos. Dal arba, we're now 57A1. Nun zayin amud aleph. Dal arba tchumen v'arba de Kronos. Okay, then we want to subtract the 4 million square amos, the tchum, which is, again, so now it's like half. So before we're subtracting 8 million, and we're subtracting 4 million. Kama have manya, we're left with 8 million. So Gemara says again, tilsa havo, still that's no more than a third of the total area. And why is that 1/4? Misa versus Bibroka. Amar is the same thing. You said we're talking about, who said we're talking about a square? Bigula kam, we're talking about a circular thing. Kam ruba yasal eagle. How much larger is the area of a square than the area of the circle? Ravia 1/4, dal ravia pashli shita. So subtract 1/4 of 8 million, and what are you left with? 6 million. V'shita me'eser v'arba riva have, and 6 is 1/4 of 24. Okay, that's a second answer. Ravina Amar, Ravina gives a third answer. My Ravia, when the Brisa said that the open area is 1/4, Ravia de Tchumen, he meant that it's 1/4 as measured by the tchum area of the open space. So what does that mean? What that means is that as opposed to what we assumed until now is that we're filling in the corners, and that gave a whole bunch of more space, we say, no, we don't actually fill in the corners. So we really only have 8 million, and now it's 8 million, which is a fraction of the 32 million, right? Which was a 32 million, which was our original measurement. Before we went going from circular to square, it was a 32 million space, and now we're saying that, so it's a square, and you add just on the sides around it, but you don't fill in the corners, and therefore you have 8 million total, 222. 2, and you have 8 million square amos around it without the corners, and that's what's given for the open space. Again, we're giving less open space, more space for the Levium to put their vineyards, etc. Rav Ashi gives a fourth answer. My Ravia, what does a corner mean? Ravia de Kranos, it means the corners. It means specifically the corners. He says the exact opposite. Whereas Ravina said we only give the space immediately adjacent to the city, Rav Ashi says no, we actually only give the corners. We only give the corners. Okay, so the math is going to be the same, right? Because we're still we're talking about we make 4 boxes, but as opposed to the 4 boxes being adjacent to the city, Rav Ashi argues and says when it comes to the space given to Levium, we actually give the empty spaces, the corners around the city. Ask the Gemara, it says that the pasuk says to be around the city. My saviv de Kranos. So Rav Ashi says no, around means the corners. It says the Gemara because and Rav Ashi proves it. Says if you don't say this, by the pasuk by carbon ola, it says v'zarku b'nei Aaron es adam that al mizbeach savim, that the kohanim throw the blood on the mizbeach around it. So we know in tradition that they don't actually sprinkle blood around it, but rather hachnam misavim mamish. It doesn't mean literally all around. No, we know that what they do is actually sprinkle in the corners, and it's as if it goes all around, because if I have a corner over here, right, and I sprinkle blood over here, then it goes on both sides. So it's as if it's all the way around. So my saviv subject kranos, hachinami, my saviv subject kranos, we're talking about around of the corners. Okay, we are done with that discussion. I know it's not so easy. Hope you followed enough, and we are going to pick up, God willing, tomorrow. Have a great day. Good night.